Like he's willing to keep one ear open for the world, just in case. He's grown into that half-shrug way of existing, like the weight of being a teenager is somehow all on one shoulder. "You nervous for the game?" I ask. He shrugs. "Nah, it's just regional qualifiers, just right, like the years of practice, early mornings, and sweaty socks I used to trip over don't culminate in these few weeks. I want to say more, something encouraging, or even something dumb, like I'm proud of you. But the words hitch somewhere in my throat. Behind old guilt and stale habits, I keep both hands on the wheel and nod like I understand. We drive the rest of the way in silence, broken only by the turn signals ticking when we pull into the school parking lot. Here's the thing. No one tells you when your kid is small and sticky-fingered and believes you know everything. There will be a day when they don't need your answers. Worse, there will be a day when they don't even ask the questions. And sometimes, it's not because they're angry. Sometimes, they just stop. Like you missed too many chances to show up, or you spoke when you should have listened, or you didn't speak when you should have. The math doesn't matter. The silence adds up anyway. Jake opens the door, grabs his bag, and says, "I'll see you after." I nod again. Too quickly. Good luck. He doesn't say thanks. Just jogs toward the field like this is just another game. Maybe for him, it is. I sit in the car a minute longer, watching him disappear behind the bleachers. I remember the way he used to wave to me before every game, make a point to find me in the stands, and raise both hands like I was his biggest fan. Which I was. Still am. But he doesn't look back anymore. And here's the worst part. I don't even blame him. Maybe it started small one game I missed because a student had a panic attack in my office. One birthday I showed up late because of a staff meeting that ran long. One bedtime story I cut short because I was too tired to read about dragons again. It's never just one thing. It's erosion, a slow, quiet loss of ground between you. I do this thing now. It's pathetic, but I do it. I keep old voice memos on my phone from when he was a kid, ones where he'd talk nonsense or sing off key. Sometimes, when the house is too quiet, I listen to them in bed, staring at the ceiling like the words can still touch me somehow. "You're the best, Daddy," one of them says, "even if you smell like onions." I laughed out loud the first time I heard that one again, and cried, both, almost at the same time. I guess that's fatherhood in a nutshell, laughing through tears and pretending you don't wish you could go back just one Tuesday night to hold their hand and mean it. I open the glove box and pull out the granola bar I brought for him, his favorite kind, with chocolate chips and sea salt. I place it on the passenger seat, knowing he probably won't even notice. But it's the only thing I have to offer tonight. A peace offering in foil wrapping. The whistle blows in the distance. I can hear the crowd. But I stay in the car a moment longer, clutching the steering wheel like it's the only thing tethering me to now. Tomorrow, I'll ask him how the game went. He'll probably say fine and walk to his room. And maybe I'll let him, or maybe I'll say, "Let's sit for a minute." I don't know, maybe. But tonight, all I can do is watch the sun dip below the bleachers and wonder when the boy who held my hand became the young man who won't meet my eyes, and why I let it happen. The first time Jake stopped calling me Dad and started saying "yeah," I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I thought it was a phase. You know, the way kids try on different versions of themselves like hats. Pirate hat one week, cool and different teenager the next, I thought. Let him have it, he'll come back around. I had no idea that small shift in tone was a kind of goodbye I wasn't ready to hear. It was around the time I'd started staying late at school more often. College applications, parent meetings, mental health emergencies. Kids these days carry so much. It's like they've skipped straight from childhood to burnout I loved my job, still do, in theory. But the more I poured into other people's kids, the more I found myself drained when I came home to my own. I remember one night, Jake was maybe 13. He'd made spaghetti for dinner, sauce from a jar, noodles a bit overdone, but he'd set the table, lit a candle, and even folded the napkins into weird little triangles. I came in late, still in my button-down and tie, with a headache blooming behind my eyes. I barely looked at the table. "Can we eat on the couch?" I asked, already loosening my tie. He looked at me like I'd knocked the air out of him. "I wanted to tell you something," he said. "Tell me now," I mumbled, microwaving my plate. But he didn't, and he never brought it up again. The candle burned down to a puddle that night, while we watched some rerun on TV, both pretending it wasn't a funeral for something we couldn't name. That's the memory that comes back to me now. Standing in the kitchen, staring at the mug rack where he used to hang the Best Dad mug he painted for me in 3rd grade. It's not there anymore. I think it broke last year. But I never threw away the handle. It's still in the junk drawer, like a confession I don't want to admit. The thing is, I didn't stop loving him. I just stopped showing up in the ways he needed. There's a difference. But try explaining that to a kid who waited with spaghetti and a candle. The next few years were a blur of growing pains, his and mine. He got taller, quieter, better at soccer, worse at talking. I got more tired, more brittle, more set in my ways. We orbited each other like planets with incompatible gravity. There was this one afternoon, he must have been 15. I picked him up from school after practice, and he got in the car with dirt smeared on his legs and grass in his hair. I smiled and said, "Rough game." He said nothing, just looked out the window. "Everything okay?" I asked. Another long silence. Then, finally, he said, "I don't know who to talk to anymore." I almost pulled the car over. I should have. But instead, I said, "You can always talk to me." He nodded once, like that was enough. But he never did. Here's the part that stings. I wasn't a bad father. I wasn't absent, abusive, or cruel. I packed lunches. I built Lego castles. I coached Little League until he begged me to stop because I yelled too much. I tried. But sometimes trying isn't the same as being there. Really being there. In the quiet moments that don't announce themselves as important. The last real conversation we had was about socks. I'm not kidding. And I said, "Keep going. I want to hear the rest." He paused, then kept reading. And something about that moment, me listening without correcting, him speaking without retreating, it felt like the first time in years we were trying at the same time. Afterward, he didn't thank me, but he left the door cracked open when he went back to his room. And I stood there, staring at that inch of space like it was a sunrise. Later that week, I found myself at the grocery store, holding a box of those frozen waffles he used to love when he was 9. I hadn't bought them in years. Thought maybe he'd outgrown them, but I tossed them into the cart anyway. When he saw them in the freezer, he didn't say anything, just made one. Slathered it in peanut butter like he always used to. Small things, breadcrumbs. The real turning point didn't come with a big speech or a hug or some TV-worthy climax. It came one Tuesday, in the car, stuck in traffic. He turned down the radio and said, "I think I want to go to college, out of state." I braced myself, but instead of panicking, I just asked, where he told me, some small liberal arts place I'd barely heard of. Lots of trees, apparently. Quiet, he said. Feels like breathing room. I nodded. Sounds good? He glanced over. You're not mad. Why would I be mad about breathing room? He gave me a look, half grateful, half skeptical. Just figured you want to be close. I do, I said. But I also want you to breathe. And he smiled again. Really smiled. Later that night, I heard him playing music in his room. Not blasting it, just soft, like background noise for thoughts he wasn't ready to say out loud yet. I leaned against his door and just listened, not to the music, but to the fact that it was playing. Because for a long time, there was only silence. And now, sound was coming back, little by little. The sound of him humming down the hallway. God, I hadn't realized how much I'd missed that. It was barely anything, just a half tune, low and under his breath. While he opened the fridge one morning looking for orange juice, he didn't even know I was in the next room. But I froze mid-pour with my coffee because it was like hearing a ghost clear its throat. Something long gone coming back to life. I didn't say anything, just stood there and let it wrap around me. After that, things didn't exactly become perfect. We weren't suddenly throwing the football in the yard or making pancakes together on Saturdays, but there was less tension in the air. Like whatever knot had been pulled tight between us had started, finally, to loosen just a bit. I started finding little signs of him around the house again. A hoodie tossed over the back of a chair. A bowl of cereal left half-eaten on the counter for anyone else. It might have looked like laziness, but for me, it meant presence. He was here, really here, one afternoon. I knocked on his door, not barged in like I used to, and asked if he wanted to go for a drive. He looked up from his laptop, wary. Now he asked, "Yeah, just a loop. Get out of the house. We won't even have to talk." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Okay." But I picked the music. I let him. Even when he queued up stuff that sounded like robots arguing with synthesizers, I didn't understand a word of it, but I nodded along like it was Beethoven, which, in fairness, I also pretended to understand back in college. Halfway through the drive, he rolled down the window and let his hand ride the wind. "Do you think you were happy when you were my age?" he asked, still looking out the window. The question came out of nowhere, like he'd been sitting on it. "I think I thought I was," I said after a beat. But looking back, maybe I was mostly just surviving, trying to be what everyone expected. He nodded. "Yeah, that's what I figured." I almost laughed. "Wait, what does that mean?" He cracked a smile. "Just, you're kind of textbook, Dad. You know, responsible, predictable. You had me at 32, right 31, I corrected. And I had hair back then." He smirked. "Hard to imagine." "Watch it," I said. "This textbook still pays for your Spotify." We both laughed. And just like that, the distance between us shrank again. There was something sacred about those drives, something unspoken. I didn't push him to talk, and maybe because of that, he started doing it more. Little things, comments about school, about his friends, about what it felt like to be 17 in a world where everything feels like it's speeding up and collapsing at the same time. I didn't always know what to say. Sometimes I said the wrong thing, but I showed up. I stayed in the car. That fall, I helped him pack for his first college visit. He was nervous. Though he didn't say it outright, I could tell by the way he kept checking his backpack, or how he asked if we should leave earlier, just in case. I told him it was okay to be scared. He nodded once, fast, then went quiet. When we pulled up to the campus, he just stared out the window. "It's smaller than I thought," he said. "You don't have to decide today," I reminded him. "Just see how it feels, right?" We walked through red brick paths, lined with maples, already turning gold. He didn't hold my hand, hadn't in years, but he stayed close. Close enough that our arms brushed every now and then, like he wanted the tether, but not too tight. After the tour, we sat on a bench near the quad, watching students pass by with backpacks and iced coffee. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I think I could be someone here." That sentence had hit me like a chord on a grand piano. Not "I want to go here," not "I like it, but I could be someone." as if for the first time. He believed there was a version of him that existed beyond the walls of our house, beyond the silence, beyond me. And I nodded, because that's all I could do. Later that night, back at home, I passed his room and saw him pinning something to his corkboard, a postcard from the campus bookstore. Nothing fancy, just the name of the school in block letters. But he stood there for a while after he pinned it, looking at it like it held a secret only he understood. I didn't interrupt, just kept walking. Some moments, you don't enter. You let them live on their own. But later, in bed, I smiled at the thought of that corkboard, of him at 17, allowing himself to hope again. And of me. Quietly cheering from the hallway. Finally learning how to be the kind of father who watches without holding too tight. The morning he left for college, I woke up early. Too early. The kind of early where the sky still looked like it was deciding whether to turn blue or stay gray. I stood at the kitchen window, nursing a half-warm mug of coffee, watching the driveway like something dramatic might happen there. Nothing did. Just our old Honda, his duffel bag in the back seat, and a box of granola bars I insisted he take. I didn't sleep much the night before. Spent it pacing, folding and refolding the same sweatshirt he left on the dryer. It still smelled faintly like his cologne, that ridiculous sandalwood mint mix he found at some overpriced store in the mall. Said it made him feel mature. I didn't have the heart to tell him he smelled like a yoga studio in Brooklyn. When he finally came down the stairs, backpack slung over one shoulder, he didn't look like a kid. He looked tall, quiet, sure in a way that hurt a little. Got everything I asked. He nodded. Yeah. I wanted to say something poetic, some nugget of fatherly wisdom he'd remember 20 years from now, maybe even quote at his own kid. But all I managed was, I packed the cables for your laptop, just in case. He gave a small smile. Thanks, Dad. The ride was quiet. We didn't talk much. Just listened to a playlist he'd made, some mix of indie rock and soft instrumentals. I didn't recognize half of it, but I liked the mood. It felt like a soundtrack to something bigger than either of us. I snuck glances at him at red lights. His jawline had sharpened. His hands looked like mine, strong, veiny, with that one crooked knuckle from playing basketball too hard in middle school. I remember icing that hand while he sobbed over not making the free throw. He thought the world ended that night. I told him it hadn't. Maybe I was wrong. We arrived on campus around 10 a.m. Move-in day was already a mess of parents unloading minivans, kids yelling across sidewalks, RAs with clipboards trying to look authoritative. It felt like a zoo, but with more anxiety and better Wi-Fi. We carried his boxes up 2 flights of stairs, no elevator, of course. And when we got to his dorm room, his roommate had already claimed the window side. Typical. I offered to help set up, but he shook his head. I think I want to try doing it myself, he said, not unkindly. I nodded. Right. Of course. So I stood there, awkwardly, holding his pillow like a prop. Eventually, I set it down on the bed and said, well, I should probably hit the road before traffic gets bad. He looked up from the drawer he was organizing. There was a second, just a flicker, where he looked like he might say something more. Instead, he walked over and gave me a hug. A real hug. Not a side shoulder thing. Not a quick tap on the back. A full, chest to chest, hold for a beat, hug. And then he said, thanks for not giving up on me. I don't cry easily. Years of swallowing it back. Years of being the one who had to drive the car, fix the broken sink, carry the boxes. But those words cracked something in me. I didn't let it spill right there. Just swallowed hard and nodded. Always. Then I walked out. The car ride home was quieter. Not because there was no one in the passenger seat, but because something inside me had gone still. Not empty, just settled, at home. I wandered into his room. It smelled like laundry detergent and old books. The bed was made. The corkboard still had that postcard pinned in the center, but everything else felt paused, like a show waiting to resume after a long commercial break. I sat at his desk and opened the top drawer. Nothing dramatic inside, just some pencils, a spare charger, a crumpled note from a classmate named Maya with a doodle of a dinosaur and sunglasses. I smiled. I hadn't heard that name before. That night, I texted him. Just a simple, "Let me know when you're settled in." An hour passed. Then a message came through. All unpacked. Cafeteria sucks. Roommate's okay. Thanks for today. I typed back, "Proud of you. Even if you forget the cables." He replied with a thumbs up emoji. It was the most anticlimactic, perfectly ordinary, deeply satisfying conversation I'd had in months. But after I set the phone down, I realized something. This wasn't the end. This wasn't the part where he disappears into adulthood and I fade into the background like an old sitcom character. This was the part where we get to figure out something new. Father and son, version 2.0. Less control, more trust, less instruction, more listening, less trying to fix, more just being there. I leaned back on his bed that night, shoes still on, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. The house felt a little emptier, but also, for the first time in years, a little lighter. Because maybe growing apart wasn't always about loss. Sometimes it was just space. Space that lets love breathe. The thing they don't tell you about the so-called empty nest is that it doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't slam shut with the front door on move-in day. It trickles in slowly, through moments. Like the first time you cook dinner for one, and realize you're still setting 2 plates by reflex. Or when you fold laundry and find there are no socks to match because none of them are his anymore. Or when you hear a car in the driveway at 10 p.m. and your heart jumps, but it's just a neighbor's kid coming home, not yours. That first week without him in the house, I went full dad mode, organized the garage, vacuumed the vents, made a spreadsheet of all the household bills like I was trying to impress a ghost auditor. I think part of me believed that if I stayed busy enough, I wouldn't feel the ache. Spoiler alert, I did. But in the strangest way, I also started to enjoy the quiet. I could leave the TV volume wherever I wanted. I didn't have to negotiate fridge space or knock on the bathroom door to ask how long he'd be. I even started reading again actual books, not just YouTube comments and utility bills. Still, there were moments I'd catch myself drifting back into the what ifs. What if I'd been more patient during those years he barely spoke? What if I'd pushed less and listened more? What if I'd let go of being right and just let him be? But regret's a slippery thing. It pretends it's useful. It whispers, "You're learning," but all it really wants is to keep you anchored to a version of yourself you've already outgrown. One night, about 3 weeks into his freshman year, he called me. No text first, no warning, just the phone ringing at 11:13 p.m. I panicked for a second. Imagined broken bones or broken hearts, or some campus emergency. But it wasn't any of those. He just wanted to talk. We ended up on the phone for nearly an hour, talking about his classes, his professor who wore Hawaiian shirts year-round, how the girl across the hall was trying to start a vegan barbecue club, which, to me, still feels like a paradox. At one point, I heard him laugh, really laugh, and it hit me he was okay. Not just surviving, not just managing. He was okay in a way I hadn't seen in years. He even asked me a question, something small, like how to unclog a sink without a plunger. But still, he asked me, like I still had something to offer. After we hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't need to. There was this steady warmth in my chest, like something had shifted back into alignment. The following weekend, I did something kind of silly. I drove out to that same lake we used to visit when he was little, the one where we'd fish without catching a thing and argue over whether peanut butter or turkey sandwiches were real picnic food. It was fall now, and the trees were just starting to change. Red, orange, gold like the sky had dripped color all over the branches. I sat on one of the old benches, thermos in hand, watching the water ripple. There was a couple nearby, teaching their toddler how to throw breadcrumbs to ducks. The little boy kept missing, tossing them behind him instead. The ducks didn't care. They waddled over anyway. It made me smile. That was us once. I didn't feel jealous, or sad, or nostalgic in a way that stung. Just peaceful. Like I'd finally reached a part of the story where the pain doesn't have the loudest voice in the room. I texted him a photo of the lake. "Your spot's still here?" I wrote. He replied, and almost instantly, "Miss that place. Maybe we can go when I'm home for break." And just like that, I had something new to look forward to. Not a rewind, not a do-over, but a next chapter. I still keep that photo as my lock screen. Not because the lake looks especially magical, it doesn't. There's a trash can in the corner of the frame, and a goose giving me side-eye, but because it reminds me of what we salvaged, what we're still building. Fathers and sons don't always get the romance of reconciliation. We don't write letters or give long hugs in the rain. Sometimes we just share a sandwich or argue about which direction to rake the yard. But inside all that silence, if we're lucky, there's love. Sometimes I still wish I could go back and do parts of it differently. But then I think about that night, him calling me without a reason. And I think maybe this was always enough. I don't talk to him every day. Some weeks we don't talk at all. That used to bother me. I used to take the silence personally, like it meant I was being forgotten, or worse, avoided. But somewhere along the way, I stopped keeping score. I stopped measuring my worth by how often he texted back. Because when he does reach out now, it's different, warmer, more intentional. He sent me a photo last week, his dorm window at sunset, with the tiniest sliver of a moon above the campus tower. Just the image. No caption. But I knew exactly what it meant. It meant, "Hey, I saw something beautiful and thought of you. That's more than I ever asked for. Really." And I've noticed something else lately. My house doesn't feel as quiet as it did that first week. It's not louder, exactly. It's just fuller. Like I've started filling it with things that matter. I'm repainting the kitchen cabinets slowly, because I'm old and indecisive, and also because I somehow ended up with 3 different shades of eggshell and can't tell them apart unless it's noon and the sun hits just right. I've started playing guitar again, even though I sound like a dying porch swing. The strings bite at my fingers like they're mad I left them untouched for so long. Fair. And I joined this walking group that meets every Saturday morning at the high school track, mostly retirees, and one overzealous beagle named Buttercup, who drags her owner like she's chasing a hot dog truck. I like it. Though, I like seeing the same faces, smiling without needing to explain myself. But the real change, the thing that's hardest to admit, I stopped waiting for the version of him I imagined. I let go of the fantasy son, the one who told me everything, who thanked me for every sacrifice, who invited me in without hesitation. I stopped looking for a mirror and started seeing a person. He's his own man now, a little awkward, more emotionally reserved than I'd hoped, but steady, smart, kind in that quiet way, like the kind of person who picks up trash when nobody's looking, or remembers how you like your coffee without ever writing it down. A few weeks ago, we were driving to a diner while he was home for fall break. We weren't talking about anything big, just music, maybe. I don't even remember. And he said, "Hey, I'm glad we're good now." That's all he said, just that. I didn't say anything right away. I nodded, smiled, changed the subject. I think something dumb about the pancakes being better on Tuesdays. But inside, my whole chest cracked open like sunlight behind clouds. We're good now. God, I held on to that sentence like a lifeline, because for so long, I didn't know if we ever would be. There were years when everything I said seemed to land wrong, like I was speaking through static. Years when the only thing we shared was tension thick, invisible, exhausting. But I think that's the strange mercy of time. It doesn't erase what went wrong. It just adds enough pages after the hard parts so you don't stop reading. You learn to carry it all together, the guilt and the grace, the missed chances and the moments you finally get right. I still keep his old basketball shoes by the back door. He'll never wear them again, but I can't bring myself to move them. They're part of the house now, part of the echo, and every now and then, when I wake up too early and the street's still blue with dawn, I'll pass his room and just listen. Not for him, not really, but for the peace that's finally settled in the space between us. Hey guys, tonight, I want to tell you something that's been sitting in my chest for years. I'm driving down Route 27, the sun doing that thing, where it sets right in your eyes, making you squint, no matter how low you adjust the visor. My kid, well, not really a kid anymore, is in the passenger seat, staring at his phone like it holds all the answers he'll never ask me for. The car is quiet, except for the sound of tires humming over asphalt and the faint clink of his cleats in the gym bag at his feet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. There, I always love seeing that. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let me take you into the heart of it all. I'm Tom. By the way, I'm 54 now. Used to be a high school guidance counselor, retired early when my wife passed. That's another story. Tonight, though, it's about my son, Jake. He's 17, about 6 inches taller than me now, with a voice that still surprises me when he speaks, mostly because he so rarely does. We used to talk about everything. When he was 7, he'd crawl into the passenger seat in his oversized hoodie, and we'd play this game where we made up fake radio shows. He'd call himself DJ Thunderfoot and do weather updates for our neighborhood. A chance of broccoli storms tonight. Folks, hide your vegetables. I'd laugh so hard I'd nearly drive into the curb. Now, that same seat feels like neutral territory, a ceasefire zone where I drive. And he scrolls. And we both pretend this is just a normal Friday before his soccer game. But the air feels different. It's not just quiet, it's hollow. And I don't know when that happened. Or maybe I do. And I've just been pretending not to. I glance over at him at a red light. He's got one earbud in. Always one. He couldn't find the ones he liked. And I said something like, "They're just socks, Jake." And he snapped, "You never listen." Then he slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I stood in the hallway afterward, holding a pair of mismatched socks and wondering how we got there, from dragon bedtime stories to weaponized door slams over cotton. It's not like I didn't want to fix it. I just kept waiting for the right moment, the perfect fatherly speech, the breakthrough. But life isn't a movie. There's no big orchestral moment where the music swells and everyone cries and says, "I'm sorry." Sometimes the silence just stretches, like gum on hot pavement, messy, stubborn, and hard to scrape off. These days, I find myself narrating pretend conversations with him in my head. Usually while I'm doing dishes or walking the dog, I imagine saying, "Jake, I know I messed up." And in my fantasy, he looks up from his phone and says, "I know, Dad. Me too. It's pathetic, I know, but it helps me sleep. That's why I started talking to the internet. You all don't see me flinch. You can't walk away or roll your eyes. You're just here, somewhere out there in the dark, listening. And that means more than you probably know. Anyway, last week, something small happened. He came into the kitchen and grabbed a banana. As he turned to leave, he said, 'Do you want me to pick up anything from the store?' It was nothing. Simple question. But my chest felt like it cracked open just a little. I said, 'Yeah, maybe eggs. And those pretzels you like.' He nodded. 'Cool,' and left. But I stood there like I'd just been handed a key to a room I thought was locked forever. So maybe the door's not closed. Not completely. But I still haven't asked him what he wanted to tell me that night with the spaghetti. And I still don't know if I ever will. I start noticing the little things more after that banana and pretzel moment. You know, the micro expressions, the way Jake half smiles when he hears the dog sneeze, the fact that he still hums while brushing his teeth, like he did when he was 7, and convinced toothpaste gave him magic wind powers. He doesn't know I can hear him through the bathroom door, and maybe he still doesn't know that I remember almost everything. Not the grades or the milestones, necessarily, but the way his voice cracked when he asked me if monsters were real. The way he used to tap the side of his water glass 3 times before drinking. The way his cheeks flushed when he got caught lying about brushing his teeth, which, ironically, he was doing while humming. I think about those things when I fold his laundry. He doesn't ask me to, and I probably shouldn't at his age. But it's the one household task I cling to. It's silent, private, and makes me feel useful. And I guess I'm still looking for clues, for a t-shirt that smells faintly like the girl he likes, or a sock with paint on it that might lead me to something he made and didn't show me. Something he created without my help. That's the quiet grief of parenthood. I think you become less needed in the ways you used to be essential. One day you're tying shoes and cutting crusts, and the next you're just a silhouette. He walks past on his way out the door. He has a job now, part-time, some local cafe. He didn't even tell me when he applied, just left a post-it on the fridge that said, "Late shift, back by 11. I stared at the note for a good 5 minutes, like it was a relic from a lost civilization. He used to write me notes in crayon. "I farted in your office. Love. Jake." This one didn't even say love. Anyway, I drove past that cafe last Thursday without meaning to. I was running errands and caught a glimpse of him through the window. He was laughing, really laughing. You know how rare that is now? That full face, teeth showing kind of laugh. There was a girl next to him, braided hair, purple hoodie, eyes fixed on him like he was the whole screen, and the world was buffering. I didn't even feel jealous. Just this weird pride mixed with envy. Like, wow, someone else gets to see that version of him now. I parked across the street, sat in the car for a while. I didn't go in, didn't wave. I just watched, like some weirdo in a dad thriller movie. But I couldn't help it. It was like seeing a future version of him I wasn't invited to meet yet. Strangest thing, I felt okay. I mean, my heart hurt in that quiet, toothache sort of way, but I also felt this tiny flame of hope. Like maybe I didn't break everything. Maybe I just stepped back for too long. When he got home that night, he smelled like coffee and vanilla syrup. I asked, "Good shift," and he just said, "Yeah, but softer this time." Like a yeah, with padding. And then he said, "We made this weird iced pistachio thing. You'd probably hate it." I grinned. Challenge accepted. That was it. No movie moment. No breakthrough, just a sentence. But it stayed with me. The next day, I bought pistachios. I don't even like pistachios. They taste like dust wearing cologne. But I left the bag on the counter with a sticky note that said, "Make me suffer." He never commented on it, but I did find the bag half gone a few days later, and in the trash. An empty to-go cup from the cafe with my name scrawled across the plastic. Dad. God. I wish I'd kept it. Sometimes progress doesn't look like hugs or deep talks. Sometimes it's a name written in Sharpie on a disposable cup. But the guilt, that sneaky, ever-present little whisper still lingers. Because even now, I'm not sure I've earned that name back. I think about that spaghetti dinner more than I should. About the look on his face when I didn't sit at the table. I wonder what he was going to tell me that night. I wonder if it was about the bullying he endured in 7th grade that I only learned about from a parent-teacher meeting months later. Or about how he didn't want to do soccer anymore, but thought I'd be disappointed. Or maybe it was nothing big. Maybe he just wanted me to notice. Funny. How the hardest thing to give sometimes is your attention. We talk more now, but it's still surface level. Weather, groceries, the occasional meme he sends me when the dog does something dumb. We exist side by side again, but not shoulder to shoulder. Not yet. I don't push. I can't. Trust rebuilt under pressure is just cracked away. Glass polished smooth. It only looks whole. But tonight, when he passed by the living room and saw me on the couch, he stopped. "Want a tea?" he asked. My breath caught. "Sure," I said. "Whatever you're having?" "Green's fine," he asked. "Green's perfect." He brought it in. No words, just set it down and nodded. And for a moment, I didn't need him to say anything more. The green tea becomes a quiet ritual. He doesn't do it every night, just here and there. Always without a word, like it's no big deal. But I know what it means. It's an offering, a handshake without hands. Some nights. I'm already halfway into my book when he comes in, sets it down beside me, and walks off with that almost shuffle he does when he's tired. And I always wait until he's out of sight before I let myself smile. Once, he sat down too. Not for long. 5 minutes. Maybe. We didn't talk. We just stared at the TV, which was paused on a cooking show where someone was flambeing a peach. He pointed and said, "That looks like a fire hazard." And I nodded and replied, "That's how you know it's gourmet." He cracked a grin and then got up. That was the first time in months he sat beside me. I want to tell him about everything. How I'm sorry. How I wish I'd shown up more. Especially during those in-between years, the middle school era, where he was changing faster than I could keep up. And I was retreating into work because I felt like I didn't know how to talk to him anymore. I want to tell him this, that missing those early signs of struggle, of fear, of just needing a dad keeps me up some nights more than coffee ever could. But I don't. Not yet. Because I've learned something apologies given too soon can feel like demands for forgiveness. And I don't want to make this about me. Still, there's a restlessness in me. Like a song I know the chorus to but can't remember the verses. I want to ask him what he remembers of me from when he was a kid. I want to hear what stuck. Was it the good stuff? The backyard camping nights? The silly voices I did during bedtime stories? Or was it the tension in my jaw when I was on work calls? The way I'd nod through his stories, but still be typing? The truth is, I think I was a better dad when he was younger. Not because I loved him more, just because he needed me in ways I understood. Now, his needs are quiet, slippery, and I keep second-guessing which version of me shows up when he looks at me. I find an old photo one afternoon. I'm cleaning out the junk drawer, not for any reason, just the itch to feel like I've accomplished something, and there it is, a strip of 3 pictures from one of those photo booths at the mall. He must have been 6. We're both wearing paper crowns from the food court. In the second photo, he's squishing my cheeks. I'm making a face like I'm trying not to laugh, but failing. I stick it on the fridge. He doesn't say anything when he sees it the next morning, but I do catch him looking at it for a beat longer than usual. Later that night, I find my paper crown tucked into my pillowcase. Okay, technically, it's a new one he must have made out of notebook paper, but he drew stars on it. My name too, King Dad, in blue pen. I wear it for a bit, just long enough to feel ridiculous and a little 10 feet tall. Then I leave it on the bathroom mirror where he'll find it. That's how we talk now, through tokens, through objects left in the right places. And there's something beautiful about it. Bittersweet, sure but beautiful, because it means we're still trying, even if the words aren't there yet. One evening, I hear music from his room, real music, not that mumbling bass thump stuff he usually listens to. This is guitar, clean, slow, familiar. I stand outside his door for a moment, piecing it together. It's a song I used to play on the stereo when he was little Sunday mornings. Sunlight through the windows, me making pancakes, him sitting on the counter licking batter off the whisk. The song was our background music. It was home. I don't knock. I don't want to spook the moment. I just stand there and let it soak into me. That tiny, wordless bridge between past and present. He's still in there, somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, he's reaching for me too. The next morning, I leave a small speaker outside his door, but the posted track 4 is still my favorite. I don't sign it. I don't need to. Later that night, I hear the faintest echo of the song again. It's funny how healing doesn't feel like fireworks. It's tea mugs, paper crowns, and old songs. But something inside me still hesitates, because if he's reaching out, then I need to be ready to reach back fully, honestly. No more half smiles and safe conversations. The real stuff, the messy stuff. And that means facing something I've been avoiding, something from the year he turned 15. 15 was the year I stopped recognizing my own son's face. Not physically, he still had the same wide-set eyes, the little scar on his chin from when he fell off his scooter. But the light behind those eyes, it changed. Or maybe it just went somewhere I couldn't follow. That summer, he started shutting his door more often. No real explanation, just shut. And I let it happen. At first because I told myself it was normal. Teenagers need space, right? But deep down, I think I was relieved, because when he was behind that door, I didn't have to face the fact that I didn't know how to talk to him anymore. One afternoon, I knocked, and he didn't answer. I waited, knocked again, still nothing. So I opened it, and there he was, sitting on the floor, knees pulled up to his chest like he was trying to disappear into himself. No headphones, no phone, just silence. I asked gently, "Hey, you okay?" He didn't look up. He just said, "Yeah," and that was it. But it wasn't. Something in his posture, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. It told me more than any answer ever could. He was hurting, or scared, or both. And instead of sitting beside him and pushing gently, offering my presence, I said the worst possible thing a father can say. "All right, let me know if you need anything." And I left. I left him alone on that floor. I tell myself I was trying to give him space, respect his boundaries. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if I asked him what was wrong, he might actually tell me, and I wouldn't know what to do with the answer. That's the day I lost him, I think. Not forever, but in that chapter. In those years, that's when the string between us thinned to a thread, and I felt it fray. A few weeks later, his grades dropped drastically, and the school called. I remember staring at the voicemail, thumb hovering over the play button, stomach in knots, like I already knew what they were going to say. I finally listened, and they said he hadn't turned in 3 major assignments, that he seemed withdrawn, distant, not himself. I drove home that evening, rehearsing the conversation in my head. I was going to be calm. I was going to listen. I was going to show up this time. But when I walked in and saw his shoes by the door, messy and mud-caked, I snapped, not even about the shoes, just everything. I yelled, asked him what the hell was going on, accused him of being lazy, told him if he didn't get it together, he'd throw away his future. He didn't yell back. He just looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're not really mad about the grades. You're mad because you don't know me anymore." And I swear, for a second, I couldn't breathe, because he was right. That night, he taped a note to the fridge. Not a dramatic one, just "Don't wait up. I'm at Max's." I stood in front of it for what felt like an hour, rereading that single sentence, like it held a deeper meaning I could decode if I stared long enough. He didn't come home until midnight. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even say goodnight. I wish I had, because the silence that followed, days, then weeks, became our default setting. And the longer it lasted, the more natural it felt, which scared the hell out of me, that I could get used to not hearing my son's voice. And still, I didn't know how to fix it. I tried small things, offering to drive him places, asking how school was, making his favorite spaghetti, extra cheese like he liked when he was little. But all I got were nods, shrugs, the occasional grunt. One night, he came home smelling like cigarettes. I didn't yell. I didn't even mention it. I just didn't know where to begin anymore. The distance between us felt too wide to shout across. I think, deep down, I started grieving him while he was still in the house, like he was fading in front of me. And I was mourning the kid who used to curl up on my lap and ask if I believed in dragons. Funny, right? How you can miss someone who's sitting right there, eating cereal at your kitchen table, the day he turned 16. We didn't have a party, just pizza and a gift card to some tech store. I wasn't sure he still liked. He muttered thanks and went back to his room. That was the year I gave up trying to be the dad who fixes everything. I stopped offering advice, stopped pushing. I convinced myself it was noble to let him come to me when he was ready. But maybe I was just tired. Or maybe I thought I'd already missed my window. There's one moment from that time I still think about too much. We were in the car, stopped at a red light. A song came on the radio, some throwback we used to sing together. When he was younger, I hummed a bit, reflexively. Then I glanced over. He was looking out the window, but I saw it. His lips were moving. He remembered the words. He was still in there. It's strange the things you hold on to when the big things start slipping. Like the fact that he still knew the lyrics to that old song. Or the way he always left one sock on the floor by his bed, never both. Just one. Like some teenager's version of breadcrumb trails back to himself. That spring, I caught him sneaking back in through the back porch at 2:15 in the morning. Not drunk, not high, just quiet. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read a magazine I didn't care about, waiting like some underpaid security guard. He saw me and froze. For a second, I thought he might run back out the door. Instead, he just said, "Didn't think you'd still be up?" I shrugged. "Didn't think you'd still be 17? He smiled. "Just a flicker. But it was there. We didn't fight that night. I just asked him if he was safe. He nodded. Said he was with Max. Then, unprompted, he added, "We're at the lake. Just talking. The irony. I wanted to ask what they talked about. I wanted to ask if he ever talked about me. But I didn't," I said. "That's good." Then I slid a plate across the table, cold pizza, and a glass of orange juice. The same combo I used to give him after soccer practice when he was 8. He didn't say thanks, but he ate it. And for 5 silent minutes, we shared something again. Of course, it didn't fix anything. The next morning, he was back behind his door, and I was back in the hallway, listening to silence. But that night gave me a thread, one I started tugging on, gently, whenever I could. A ride to school here, a check-in about college visits there. One Saturday, I offered to help him with his college essay. He stared at me like I'd offered him a kidney. Then he said, "You wouldn't get it. Try me." I said. He sighed, pulled up a Google Doc, and read aloud. The hardest thing about growing up wasn't leaving childhood. It was watching the people around me stop trying. I blinked, tried to hide the sting. That line wasn't about teachers or friends. It was about me, and I knew it. I could have defended myself, told him about all the long nights, the quiet worry, the fear of saying the wrong thing. But none of that mattered, because in his eyes, I had stopped trying, so I swallowed it.